Hey footy fans, welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host Dave, and today I have a sensational guest on the show. We're going back with a Canterbury League legend. They call him the Iceman. It's the one and only Coughlan. Welcome to the show, mate. How you going?
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, mate, it's so cool. I've been super pumped about this one all week. It's awesome to have you on the show, and I know there's lots of viewers out there very keen to hear your story because you're pretty popular and very highly regarded down here in Canterbury, which leads me to ask, what have you been doing with yourself down here ever since you hung up the boots?
So once I finished footy, I finished at a pretty young age actually. I retired at 28 and I carried on working. I actually started work for a removal company when I left school.
Okay.
And I worked for them for 27 years. So once I finished footy, I carried on with that company and because they allowed me to progress, they allowed me to leave and come back. When I was in Australia, I worked for them part-time.
Right.
And when I came back, it was just a progression for me. So a big thanks to Xlll Clark, who's a Halswell stalwart as well.
Yeah.
Xlll Clark employed me when I first started out of school.
How cool is that? You're still with them?
Yeah, so that was for 27 years, and I just changed jobs probably about 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I've only had 2 jobs in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so I currently work for a company called Telelift, and we do telehandlers.
Okay.
Not well-known machinery, but we hire, sell machinery for customers around New Zealand. Yeah.
Oh, sweet as, man. So have you always enjoyed living in Christchurch? Because I think it's a beautiful place. I've only been here just over a year. Have you ever thought about leaving, or is this home for you?
I'm born and bred in Christchurch. I did a stint a couple of years away. But no, I always wanted to come back to Christchurch and raise a family here. Yeah, so
it's a pretty awesome place.
Oh yeah, it's great. I think it's it opens up whatever you want to do, whether it be outdoors, sport, leisure activities.
Yeah.
The South Island is a pretty cool place. It is cold in the winter, but you do get used to it.
I think it's worth it, eh? Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what sport you're into. Like, you've got a beach with surf, but then you've got a harbour that's flat. You've got mountains.
Yeah.
You've got the red zone for running. You've got golf courses everywhere. You can do anything here.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
We've got plenty of golf courses in Christchurch, and I do enjoy that.
That's good, man. So, and also by all accounts, you're a bit of a sports junkie. You pretty much play every sport known to man. And I hear you're pretty handy off the golf tee.
Yes, I do get told from time to time that I am a bit of I won't say sports junkie, but anything I sort of put my hand at in terms of sport generally comes natural to me.
You're one of those annoying people.
Yeah, that's what I get told. I am annoying. So I try a lot of outdoor sports. I'm right into my golf at the moment. I'd say right into my golf. I really enjoy my golf.
Yeah.
But a bit of running, bit of squash. Just finished playing tennis for the season. So, just anything to keep me active.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so you've done some marathons with your wife as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So we had a running group, a bunch of friends. We called ourselves the ARC,
right?
Which is Ancient Running Club. And so we would go away and do trips all over the world, mostly New Zealand, Australia, and we'd just do half marathons, just an opportunity to get away and spend some time together. And the opportunity came up for Paris. So my wife trained for the marathon. That was a sort of a bucket list thing for her. So we did that. Went with a couple of friends and stayed in the south of France for a week. Then went up to Paris, did the marathon. She actually didn't know I was going to run with her. I actually got injured with my calf about 3 weeks before, and I didn't lead on to it. But I ended up running with her, which was great because I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So first time we're into the Paris city for to see all the sights, and it was pretty spectacular, and it was great to be there with her as well.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, it's pretty special running with my wife. I've done a couple marathon events with her. That's the best, eh?
Oh, it's super.
Do something together. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And you got to take every 1 or 2 Ks, you got to taste a different wine.
Yeah. Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, it's fantastic. They have entertainment right throughout the whole course. So while it took us 5 hours, it was just went like that.
That is such a cool marathon. I need to do that. Yeah, wine tasting. How good. Okay, so let's wind back the clock. So obviously you grew up here in Christchurch, but what was life like for you as a young fella? Yeah,
so I got raised up in Shortland Street in Aranui.
Oh, okay, I know where that is.
Yep. So I was there for probably about 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And so I went to Aranui Primary, Chisnawood Intermediate, and then Shirley Boys High School.
Okay.
So so I started football when I was about when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
But I didn't play for the local eastern side. I played for Halswell.
Right.
Because my family was really involved with the Halswell Rugby League Club.
Okay.
So my grandmother, she was a foundation member at Halswell Rugby League. So her photo was always up at the club rooms.
Amazing.
Yeah, Flo Coughlan and my grandfather. They were all a big part of building the Halswell Rugby League Club.
Okay.
And so that was on my dad's side. And my mum's side, my grandparents were also heavily involved with the local community, Halswell Rugby League. And my mum's got a big family, and her brothers were playing rugby league for Halswell. My uncle David, he was in the first premier team at Halswell.
Wow.
And my other uncle Chris, he played league for Halswell, and Gary was a Halswell man. So even though it was a long trip across town, my mum got an opportunity because my grandparents lived over there, so she would take me to training at Rowley Ave.
Right.
And when I was 10 years old, and she would just go and have a catch up with her parents and then take me home. So that was 2 times a week when I was 10 years old.
Far out.
So a big ups to my mum for doing that for 2 or 3 years.
Good on you, Mum.
Yeah.
That's what we love.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So what was it about rugby league that got you interested? Obviously your family's pretty much entrenched in Halswell Rugby League. Was that kind of it's just what you did?
Yep. My dad played also. He played some premier football for Halswell, and he played for Halswell when he was young as well.
Nice.
So it was just a natural thing for me. If I was going to play, I was going to play for Halswell, and that's what I wanted to do. So yeah.
So away you go.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So you played for a few years. You guys were championship winners and going undefeated in your first sort of season as like 10-year-olds. Yeah. 17 out of 17. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I turned up to, when I was 10, I turned up to a pretty good side. I think they had won. Well, they'd probably gone unbeaten until they were about 11. And I do remember in the 8s and 9s that when I joined them in 10, they hadn't been beaten. So, I was probably fortunate enough to turn up to a side that was a pretty good side to start with. And there were some really good players that are still friends now.
Awesome.
Some well-known names, Stephen Hickling and Lance Owens were probably my best mates. And I'd always, even though I lived on the other side of town, I'd always want to stay over there and stay at their house and stuff like that, because they were sort of like, even though I had friends at primary school, they were my football friends, and I really wanted to spend a lot of time with them. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So they were a very good side.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And you made your first Canterbury rep side as well as a 10-year-old, and you guys beat West Coast in the Mercer Cup.
Yeah.
So that's going way back. Yeah. But your talent was obviously noticed. Way back then.
Yeah. Well, I think. Obviously, being in a good team always helps.
Yeah.
So that was probably the best part of it. And I do remember the in the younger grades, the 10s, 11s, and 12s, for example, going over to the coast and playing the coast, and the coast would come over here alternate years, and it was really like a vivid memory. I was going over there in a bus, and this used to be the staircase, which is now the viaduct, and the old buses have sort of struggled with a busload of boys and parents going over there, and I think one of them stalled, and we had to all get out and push the bus up the hill. They were great trips.
Good days.
And Wingham Park was a great park. I still remember it when it was pretty much up to the rim with water. It was totally flooded and we couldn't play. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they were great times when you were young.
Yeah, I mean, those were the days before we had all this technology that distracts kids.
Dead right.
And they must be pretty special memories.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were great. Sort of right through that younger grades anyway.
Yeah. So you actually did jump ship and play for Eastern Suburbs at Shirley Boys High, where you were crowned Canterbury champions. And it just kind of seems like success followed you everywhere you went.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it sort of got to the 13s, and we were still living in Aranui, and it got to a stage where my mum was probably, it was a bit too much for her to take me across to training over in Halswell. So I decided that I would play for the local team, Eastern. Yeah. They were based out of Hampshire Street. And again, they had a really good side that year, the year that I went to them. And so I stayed with them for a couple of years. And obviously a lot of good schoolmates as well. So I was able to sort of progress with a good team into the Canterbury teams and sort of make some, they had a southern zone back then, right back at the age of 13, where you sort of start to travel away and sort of get a sort of an idea of where you compare with other players around the other regions, other than the coast, obviously. So the Southern Zone tournament was sort of Taranaki, Wellington, Canterbury and the coast.
Okay.
So that's where it sort of started, and that sort of led into the high school year with Shirley boys. Yeah.
Nice. Where you became the black sheep of the family.
Yeah. Well, yes. I had two older cousins that went to Shirley, and Aranua was just down the road from me, but I sort of looked up to them a lot, and so my goal was to go to Shirley boys, and you had to go and do exams and stuff to get, because you're outside of zones that type of stuff. But I got accepted, and I really enjoyed the time that I had there. Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, what position did you play back in those days? Because you sort of floated between fullback, 5'8", lock. What were you primarily back in those days?
So I pretty much played either at standoff or in the centres.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was younger. So most of that, sort of the younger years, I wasn't really in the forwards at all. I was very small for my age.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess when you're small, and I do remember like 11s and 12s, you're probably very similar age, and there was a couple of people that normally stand out. But when you get to sort of 13 and 14, to me, some of the boys that were the same age they looked like men.
Yeah.
They were big boys. And Maya David is a classic example. Stephen Hickling, classic example. They were big boys.
Yeah.
They're very good players, and they were well above their years. But they were big, and so obviously as a small boy, you sort of have to adapt your game around that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was trying to get some speed, and I had a sidestep, and that helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you enjoy the physicality of the game, or was it something you sort of like hide me in the halves, let the props look after you?
Yeah, when I was younger, it was probably hide me. Yeah. You did have to learn tackle technique, because if you didn't, you got bruised arms, forearms, and stuff like that. But as I got on later on in the years and had some really good coaches, at Halswell, when we first started, Steve Arneson was a great coach for me. He was my first coach for 2 years, and so I was really ashamed to leave, but I wasn't going to get myself across town. So I was very lucky with the coaches I had through the ages as well that sort of developed my game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and to skip forward, like when you played like more like, prems and further on in your career, like did you start to enjoy the physicality? Because most players love folding guys, was it?
Yeah, well, I didn't think I was right into physicality. I didn't mind the contact. The contact was fine.
Yeah.
I still wasn't a big person. There was players around that you got to avoid. Yeah, there was, like Jason Duff, for example. He would cut people in half. So you just knew which players when you were running to avoid.
Yeah.
But when players ran at you, because you're from sort of 13, 14, 15, as you sort of got bigger, some people got bigger.
Yeah.
You sort of had to start learning more technique than anything. So it didn't worry me. And playing closer in the halves, and I probably did play in the halves right up until I was probably into Premier football.
Okay.
So it was sort of close to the action, and whether I was targeted, I don't know, but you sort of had to start learning pretty quickly how to tackle properly.
Okay, all right. So what about the fitness side of things? Like, were you a fitness junkie back then? Did you do extras like, get up before school or train after school? What was it for you?
Yep. So I think I was pretty fit. We were very active when we were young, so I had a lot of friends around the area that we would just go and explore, whether it be over to Carl Stadium, which is an area we'd just run around, some mates were, or down to the park playing cricket. We were always sort of pretty active. I remember back in those days when you do the city to surf, so we'd do the city to surf when it actually was from the city. It wasn't to the surf, it was to Kiwi 2.
Okay.
So I remember doing sort of those when I was younger. And so I was pretty. Hampshire Street wasn't probably the best street for me. A little white fella going to practice. So I think I got quite quick. Running from Hampshire Street to Shortland Street to get home pretty quickly.
I've run around down there when me and Tracy run out to New Brighton. We go past the Eastgate Mall. And you just sort of run all the way out and you see Shortland Street, and it was like. Yeah, she's a little rough over there. I do recall being bullied a few times. So you sort of do, you do adapt and you try and become quick or elude people because they're chasing you or whatever. So I was pretty fit, naturally fit when you are young and active. But definitely was. I do recall doing runs. So, down to Eastgate, for example, from home was probably there and back was about 8k. So that's decent for a kid.
So I was. So I was pretty keen on the running back then. It was really just to keep fit. More than anything. I wasn't really a runner. I did have a friend who did athletics back in those days, so I did a little bit of athletics as well, just to sort of keep in touch with them.
Very nice, very nice. So did you think that it was something you really want to pursue, playing rugby league, like right up through the grades? Was sort of first grade, like even looking at Australia or going to UK like a lot of people do? Did you ever dream of doing that as a young man? Like, not
really. I really enjoyed it. I guess that was the main thing. I loved playing the game, and I never really looked past just the love of the game and spending time with your mates and stuff like that. So probably not until, you know, when I thought there might be an opportunity, when you sort of start to get recognised as an older, you know, sort of an older teenager. So right through the younger grades now, I just enjoyed the game. And
fair enough too. Right, so then it starts to get a bit more serious. You get to the 16-year-olds, you're playing back at Halswell. You'd be very happy about that, playing right through to premiers. But firstly, what was it like pulling on your first Halswell jersey? You know, you've grown up as the younger grades, but now you're starting to get into those serious years, and you're, you know, playing against the big boys. Yeah, pulling on the Halswell jersey. What's it like for you? Yeah,
so we actually moved from Aranui. We moved out to Halswell, so I was able to get myself to training. So from 16 on, so it was great to be back at Halswell and not have to rely on my mum to take me to training. So that was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I still reconnected with some of the old mates that I'd played with back in the younger years.
Nice.
Because I'd played against them, obviously, going through the sort of 13s to 15s. And it was 16s was a really big year for me. I sort of leading up to the sort of the senior sides, because I'd missed out on the Canterbury 15s the year before, which is a big year for schoolboys. Because you have the schoolboy Kiwis. So I missed out on that team. So I had to reassess, you know what I was doing wrong, or what could I improve on. So 16s was a big year for me, moving back to Halswell, and I was really lucky because Aaron Whittaker was a premier player at that stage. And you sort of looked up to those premier players. So when I was back at Halswell was starting to sort of be recognised as one of the top teams in the senior premier competition.
Right.
And Aaron coached us.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So as a 16-year-old, Aaron was only a few years older than us, but it was great to have him, because, you know, he was very, very dedicated to the sport, as you probably found out.
Oh, I love it.
And so that was really good for me. And from a training perspective, I actually started going to the gym with him, because I was still quite small at 16. And so that was really good for 16-year-olds. So that sort of progressed me through to sort of getting into the senior grades.
Very nice, very nice. So 1990, you're named as the Junior Canterbury Sportsman of the Year, alongside Kelly Wilson and Aaron Whittaker, who was the senior. So what's it like to win a pretty awesome award? Like, you've just been knocked back from the Canterbury side, but then you've obviously, you know, fought your way back and then won yourself a pretty amazing award. So how'd that make you feel?
Yeah, it was great at the time. It was I guess it was a good thing, or a great thing for the club, because we're all from Halswell, and we had the senior, junior, and obviously with Aaron as well. So it was really good. 17-year-old, we had a really good 17-year-old side. So to be recognised, that was probably the first recognition from from Canterbury as an individual award. Sort of, that's when you start thinking, oh well, maybe it's not about me always being in a good team and getting sort of the accolades of representative stuff. It was probably more about, oh, maybe I'm not so bad.
So was that sort of that point where you think, well, maybe I can reach for some higher honours here?
Yeah, well, obviously you follow the competition in Australia, and that was, you know, the big boys play in that competition. And I'm not sure, even at 17, probably not so much, but probably getting into 19, because you play 2 years in 19, so because they're only, you go from 17 to 19. That's when you sort of start to realise that, you know, you're playing against players that are older than you and not in your same grade. So it sort of you sort of think, oh, well, I can still match it against some of the older boys. And that leads from 19s to premiers, because it's an open grade.
Right.
So, you know, the best players are playing. So, you know, even though it took me a wee while to find my feet, that's when you sort of start to think, oh, maybe I'm okay. Nice, very cool. So that same year, you were selected to play for the New Zealand under-19s tournament team in 1990 and 91, and you're playing alongside guys like Ruben Wiki, Steve Kearney, Willie Poaching, you know, Sid Airy in those 2 years. What was it like receiving
that first like national rep jersey?
Yeah, that was really that was huge, especially for 2 years. You know, that was from the tournament. You sort of go up to I think it was Hopu Hopu. I think from memory up sort of Hamilton Way.
Yeah,
and so they're big tournaments, and while I missed out on the junior Kiwis, you sort of you got to play in tournaments against the best teams, and I guess it was just recognition for again having a good tournament over a number of games. So that was really pleasing, and that's the opportunity you start to get and recognise from New Zealand Rugby League, because from that you got invited to camps. And they were really good because you sort of started to meet some of the guys from around the country, and you sort of got some professional development. I still remember a story from one of the camps about you're sort of sitting down with because they talked about what's in the future, what's the opportunities. And you're sort of talking about nutrition, and it's starting to get really serious, right? It's like you start, whoa, this is a new world for me. It's like as a teenager, you sort of just do what you want and you get through it. But now it's becoming fairly serious. And I remember a guy, they were talking about drugs in sport, even back then. And I remember one young fella was saying, oh, is it okay to smoke marijuana before a game? And they said, oh, no. He said, oh, no, but I take it and it makes me fly. So, of course it probably does in your head. But
you crap on the park, but you're flying all right, brother.
But yeah, it's that type of stuff that you sort of start to get recognised for, and that was really good, because you start to build sort of friendships with guys who are outside your region. So when you sort of go to those types of things, it makes you a little bit more comfortable when you meet up at tournaments and the bigger grades.
Oh, that's cool, man. So what learnings do you reckon you took? I guess the nutritional, that professionalism, I'm guessing that's what you took away from that.
Definitely.
To take back to Halswell with you.
So the nutrition was big in terms of training, the way that you should be eating, the way I should be training, because I was sort of starting to probably develop a little bit, better at that time, and I was sort of starting to sort of grow, obviously, so that you can sort of start competing against the big boys and then into the open grade. So that was pretty a big thing, training wise. Aaron was still at the club, so we would train together. Especially in the sort of right up, as a premier player, they sort of had training programs. We probably didn't, but I would train with him. We'd go to the gym together. So that was really cool. I remember doing that. He's talked about the 5 o'clock gyms. We were doing that, and
that's crazy.
And that's the sort of the dedication, because you start to think that, well, if you do want to take it seriously, then this is what you've got to do. So with nutrition, because I do a lot of running, I always treat myself to my favourite pork ribs or whatever afterwards. Was there anything you had to sacrifice, or was it easy for you? Was it just this is what I need to do? That's what I'm going to do. I think it was more about me putting stuff into my mouth just to sort of try and build some weight.
You actually need to eat more.
I did need to eat more, so it was pretty much anything.
What a horrible situation to be in.
So my son's going through this right now, because he's at the same age. He's 17 now, so he's trying to. He's trying to put a little bit of weight on, and he's eating all the shakes and
get that protein down,
and all that type of stuff that goes in the body.
Awesome. So 1992, you play premiers for Halswell Hornet. What's that step up like to Prems? You're up with the men now.
It was a big stepping stone, and I do remember playing my first game of premiers, and I was put on the wing, and while I was sort of fast, I wasn't really fast. And so, but it was somewhere just to give me a taste. And I was lucky enough. Gordon Smith, who was a Kiwi, he was coaching at Halswell. We'd come across from the coast.
Good deal.
So it was really good to be able to have those types of people to sort of help you step into that role, because it was a big step for me, because I was still 19 at that stage. I was playing 19s, and then I sort of had my chance at premiers. So I was still quite young, and there was a lot of Kiwis playing in the Christchurch competition. It was back in the day when all the Kiwis would play for their clubs, and there were some big boys around. I thought the age group guys were big, but when you get to premiers, it's a huge step.
Well, you've got guys like yourself on the way up, then you've got these old guys who are probably 30, 32 on the way sort of down, but the mix is like they're experienced and hardened,
dead right,
and you're raw ass.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, dead right. And there was some of the guys who probably played premiers for 10 years.
Yeah.
they were very experienced, so they knew their way around the track. But it was good for me. I was like, it was a good learning curve. I did get injured, and I'd never really experienced injuries right up.
Really?
Through the younger grades, I was injury free, touch wood.
Okay.
But in my first full year in '92, I dislocated my shoulder.
Oh, ouch!
Yeah, and it was horrible. And I remember at the showgrounds, I dislocated it, and I had to go into the changing rooms, and they pulled the doctor, and because it was the first time, it was pretty horrible from my point of view, pretty excruciating pain because the bone was rubbing on the bone.
Oh, stop it.
And the doctor, he tried to pull my arm out to put it back into the socket, wouldn't go.
Oh.
And so I had to go to hospital to get it put back in, take some laughing gas.
Working.
So that was a little bit disappointing. So I had to sit out a few weeks, and then I came back, and then I did it again. Really? And I know we actually played, and I do remember it happening this time, and it was Halswell were playing Eastern on the number 1 ground, and Terry Hermanson was playing centre.
Terry.
Because I remember Terry saying he actually played a little bit of centre.
Yeah.
And I was marking it, and Terry was a beast.
He's a big man.
He was a big, fast beast. And I was scared of it because I was still quite new at this grade. And he'd gone, he was very mobile, and I remember reaching out because I did my right shoulder, and I reached out, and that was enough to take it out.
You just ran
so
through
it. Yeah, basically it went again. So another 3 weeks, and then I did it again.
Oh,
so
really?
That was basically that was enough to say that's it.
That's the season.
Yeah, I remember throwing a cricket ball just socially, and it would dislocate or sublux.
Really?
So I was able to, in the end, it was just so loose, I was able to put it back in myself. So
that's crazy.
So that stopped my season. So I had to have a shoulder reconstruction at 19. Yeah.
19?
Yeah.
Far out, that's crazy. Any other good injuries during your career?
I had a couple of good rugby injuries.
Okay, let's hear about them. While we're on injuries, let's cover that.
So we were playing, Sydenham was playing New Brighton over at Rawiti Domain.
Okay.
And I can't remember, I think it was my second year, and I was still sort of the leaguey playing rugby.
Yeah.
Right. And I got caught up in a ruck, and someone grabbed me in the genitals.
Of course.
And I took exception to it.
I bet.
Yeah. So the next play, I was playing first 5 at that stage, and the next play, I saw the guy who was about to do a run. So I lined him up and basically went up and just put a big hit on him. Yeah. And I broke my thumb.
Damn it.
Yeah. And that was the day of my birthday, because I remember going into town, and I said, oh, no, it's all right. It was swollen and all that stuff. Oh, no, it'll be right. And we were in town for dinner.
Yeah.
And it was my hand was getting so swollen.
Must have hurt.
Yeah. So I ended up having to go to the hospital, and yes, it was broken.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But other than that, I did get stomped on in a ruck as well, playing rugby.
Yeah.
And I broke 3 bones in my hand, on my other hand. But other than that, injury free.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's great. And it's been great sort of post sports with the running, for example.
Yeah.
I get bad cramps for long distance, but no real bad injuries other than the shoulder, which restricts me a little bit in some sports, but it does help me in others.
Yeah, I know a few old boys. When I was up in Hamilton working with this fella, John Herbert, big league fan, played heaps of league and rugby growing up, but his knees for running are just, forget about it.
Yeah.
Just no good.
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate still have good... Well, have legs that can still allow me to run around and do the things I want to do.
Awesome, man. Yep. Loving it. Okay, so what sort of style of footy was going on in Canterbury at the time in Preds? Like, was there that old school thuggery, or did you have to avoid anything like that, or step up and take on any old boys picking on you? Like, what was it like?
Well, I was never really one for confrontation. I was lucky enough that I had some big boys. When I was at Halswell, we had some good senior players. Yeah. Glenn Grew, Steve Davis, Colin Tennant, Denny Prenneville. Okay. So there was some guys that could hold their own, and they were very good leading for me, especially for me, as I sort of come to the open grade, that they would look after you.
Good.
So that was really good. So no, I stayed away from it, but the contact, it was very physical back there. There was some very talented players in the halves, so it was quite an open game still.
Okay.
But it was very physical as well, from what I remember. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. So that 92 season, that's the one where you did end up getting your shoulder reconstruction. But you guys won the Gore Cup in 92. So at least you're a part of winning some silverware for the year, even though it's the lower half of the ladder. But still good in your first year of Prems to walk away with something. Yeah,
it was a really good, because what it did for me is it got me prepped for the next year. And so because I was a little bit older, a little bit more wiser, spending some time up playing Premier football, I was ready, and I had an off season. Basically, I had a big off season because it was basically 4 to 6 months that I had off for full reconstruction. And it was good. I actually had an opportunity to go and see Aaron. He was playing at Illawarra Steelers at that stage. So I went over and
he was.
So I went over there and caught up with him, spent some time with him and Andrea. He was playing Penrith, who's my favourite team. So the Steelers were playing Penrith out at Penrith Stadium, so it was an opportunity to go over there, and so that was really good. So as soon as the training as soon as my shoulder was right, I was ready to get into it for the 93 season.
Right. So that was a huge season for you personally. It came down to a classic Halswell Hornet grand final. I mean, this is the jersey you wore.
That's right.
Unbelievable. Thanks for bringing these around. These are unbelievable. Like, wow. And you were captain.
So Jared Stokes took us in 93, so that was great to have another. As I said before, when I was growing up, I had some great coaches. Right, even the 19s, we had Ray Baxendale, who was a former Kiwi player from the coast. So I was very fortunate with coaches, but Jared Stokes was probably at that stage and playing senior football, he was probably the best coach I'd had.
Right.
He was a good people's person, and I found through my career that the best coaches that I've sort of related to were really good people, and he could sort of get you up. For a game, and so it was a big season for us, and we had a lot of good players. Aaron, obviously, Walter Wilson, Whiri Taiwa played for the Kiwis.
First Warrior.
Justin Nixon came over from Hornby. So we had a really good team, and I think he gave me Jared gave me the captaincy because there's probably a lot of players that probably were better than me, but he sort of gave it to me and sort of get everyone to focus on what they were going to do for the year. So it was probably a good tactical, and I played fullback at that stage. So I did a lot of talking. Don't do a lot of talking off the field, but when I get onto the field, especially at fullback, I did a lot of talking.
Well, that's your job to communicate with everyone.
Well, that's right. I mean, when we were talking about tackling before, if I do my job properly at fullback, no one gets through, and I don't have to make a tackle.
That's helpful.
So all I have to do is do the offense side of things. So that worked out really well. So at 20 years old, I was captaining the Halswell Premier side.
Pretty amazing, man.
And a great side with some great players. Gary Pluckton, and there were some fantastic people in that side. So, I thought, wow, the world's my oyster in 1993. Hadn't turned 21 at that stage.
That's amazing, man.
And Hornby were great foes. It was. Back in those days, even and beforehand, grand finals are the biggest thing. And it was all about the journey all the way down from, whether it be from Hornby or down Lincoln Road, Halswell Road, all the way to the showgrounds. And they had some great crowds. It was fantastic to play in. Great days, weren't they? Provincial footy. And it's the same up in the Waikato where I'm from, and I was more in my 8, 9, 10 years old, we had rugby union was massive in Hamilton, league's barely been a thing. But the Mulu parades for the Ranfurly Shield, the whole city would come out for that and get down the main street. It was, that type of fanfare is amazing.
So cool.
And it was great because I do remember from a younger age, because we used to have a lot of ball boys in Halswell. So me and my mates were ball boys at a lot of those games, at premier games, and you look up to these players. They were just outstanding. And it didn't matter if it was a Wednesday night midweek game or a premiership game. There was always really good crowds there, which was great.
That's so cool, man. So you go into the grand final, you've got there, and it comes down to a gritty 8-6 victory over Hornby. I mean, just how good was that? Like, how did the match play out from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty... To be fair, I think even though it was only 8-6, I think it was an open game.
Okay.
It was... Mark Nixon was and Chukarona. Simon Angel was, he was a massive when, back in those days as well. There was a lot of great Hornby players, a lot of great Halswell players. Chris Neem was my training partner at the time, and so I did a lot of training with Chris Neem, and he was an outstanding player. The players from my experience were just. I thought they were all legends. I was just part of a really good team, and it was just a great battle. And that's what it was. There was nothing in it the whole way, and it could have gone either way, really.
So did it come down to like a penalty goal for the difference?
No,
was it 2 tries?
Yeah, we got 2 tries.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Gary Pluck scored 1. I'm not sure if Darren Avery always pops up with tries somewhere, so he probably scored 1. But I think it was very forward orientated that day.
Okay.
We both probably wanted to play in the backs because we had Aaron and Fetu playing in the centres.
Okay.
We had Dale Paulson at halfback and Gary Pluck at hooker and Justin Nixon. So both teams, and they had some very good players as well out the backs. And I think Marty Creaker was playing for them. Yeah. So. It was
pretty stacked finals.
It was.
That's what you want,
stacked, and that's what you wanted. But it was a ding dong battle.
Awesome, man. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You got the win.
Yes.
And what's like that feeling like the final hooter goes off, the team's all in cheering, like big night,
It was a great night, and I think after those types of finals, whether you won or lost, you'd always do the courtesy of going to the other club. And Halswell and Hornby, we're huge rivalry over the years. We'd always have the respect afterwards, and we would go to their club and they would come to our club. But I still remember walking into the Halswell club after we'd done everything, and you could hardly move. It wasn't the biggest club rooms, but it was jam packed. And that was the greatest thing is for a small community at that stage it was Halswell. They'd done some great things over probably the last 5 years. And 93 was just awesome for me because it was the first time I'd actually been involved. They kept it all the way to the premiership. That's
so amazing. How good's that? Awesome, man. So speaking of Jared Stokes, you said he was a great manager. And what was he like as a coach in terms of how he prepared you guys as a team? Yeah,
he was actually very thorough. I remember getting calls, not so much because I was the captain, but just in terms of tactics during the week. Like he was just, I would say OCD. But it was like you'd get calls during the week about, I've found out this about this player and you've got to do this. And you got training's Tuesday, Thursday. But it was great because, he was just so thorough. He left nothing unturned. He'd always, not just work on our game, but he would also look at the opposition. He'd probably study their videos from previous weeks. And that's why he sort of progressed through to higher honours because that's the type of coach he was.
Wow.
He had the experience as well from playing some higher level Kiwi stuff. He would analyse it. He'd give you sheets about the teams, about what their strengths and weaknesses were, where to focus, in terms of where do we go to on certain places on the park to attack a weakness and stuff like that. So it was great because you just soak it in at that age, and it's probably the first time you sort of experience that type of stuff and how the game had developed over from just a big slugfest up the middle and then spin it out into swapping your centres or getting your fullback in the back line and how you do all that type of stuff. So it was really good and I really enjoyed it. And it sort of led on to the higher honours as well, and especially when the Lion Red Cup came.
Yes. Speaking of which, that's what we want to talk about. You signed with the Canterbury Cardinals for the Lion Red Cup.
That's right.
And so that's the New Zealand domestic competition that formed around 94 because the Auckland Warriors came into the comp. And from what I read, they wanted to raise more awareness in the public in New Zealand for rugby league, like at the domestic level. So we had 2 teams down here in Canterbury, the Shiners and the Cardinals. So how did you end up at the Cardinals, and was there any pull to go to either team? Like, how did all that fall out?
Yeah, well, I think certain clubs, I'm not sure if it was regions, but I know Halswell and Hornby and I think Papanui were sort of allocated to I think they were called the Canterbury Country, and so they later became the Cardinals because Cardinal Network was a major sponsor.
Okay.
And then some clubs were more to the Shiners, which was mostly the east side, the Easterns, the Linwoods and the Sydenhams and so forth. So that's how it started. But yeah, it was great because a lot of what the Warriors were starting up in the Australian competition helped New Zealand Rugby League, and it formed this competition because we would have representative stuff, and it was still going on. 93, obviously a big year for Canterbury with the Auckland stuff. So 94, you got to do this every week, which was great. And there was teams. You know, we were the only 2 teams in the South Island, I think, at that stage. And then so Wellington, the Taranaki, the Hawke's Bays, and
Cougars.
Cougars,
Waikato.
Gavin Hill. Cougars. I remember playing Gavin Hill down here at the Showgrounds. I
used to go watch them. I lived by Rest Hills Park. So I used to go down and have a watch. Yeah, it's great.
Because I do remember Gavin was he's a goal kicking prop, and I was a goal kicker as well.
Of course.
And so I remember playing Waikato at the Showgrounds, and they were very generous sized balls, so they had a good sweet spot, so you could actually kick a ball quite a long way.
Okay.
And I remember kicking one from about 50, 55, 56 metres.
Yeah.
And it was like Gavin Hill was like, I can do one up, and I reckon it was like 62 metres he did one.
He was a freak, man.
He was. He was unbelievable. Yeah. But it was the competition was great, and it was great for New Zealand domestic football. As well as developing the New Zealand, the Auckland Warriors at that stage, because I know that players from Christchurch had gone up to there, and they were playing in those feeder clubs like Fetu played for the Counties Manukau.
Yes.
I think they were called the Stingrays.
Something like that. Yeah.
So that helped them into that competition as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, Jared Stokes was your coach, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and you played alongside like Logan Edwards, Shane Endicott, Mark Nixon, Aaron Whittaker, we're talking some pretty big names, you know.
Right.
And so what was it like for you running around with those blokes, you know, and taking on like players from Auckland and the rest of the country? You must have loved that.
Oh, it was great. It was a great opportunity to further develop your career.
Yeah.
Put yourself against the best players in the country week on week on week. So it wasn't like the Auckland Canterbury or the Auckland Wellington, you know, every sort of 3 or 4 weeks for a sort of a month period. It was like every week. So you had to sort of work out, you know, it was all about after the game as well. And so your sort of nutrition and your resting and getting prepared again for the next week, because if it wasn't at home, you were travelling. So getting used to travel and what do you do when you travel and all that downtime that you have and how to best use your energy and all that type of stuff. So it was really exciting.
Quite semi-professional.
Oh, very, very much so. I'm sure we even got paid. I can't really remember if we got.
So you're still working full time?
So that's right.
How do you juggle all that?
I know it was hard, but I guess we were lucky to have some good employees at the time. I guess if I was an employer,
and I had a pretty elite sportsman in my staff, you know, you'd be wanting to give them every opportunity, especially if you've got a boss that loves footy or whatever. That's pretty handy, you know.
Well, that's right. Ethel Clark was a Halswell guy, so he did love his footy, so we were very lucky.
Very lucky.
And so the competition was outstanding. You know, there was some, and it was a stepping stone for a lot of players that if they didn't go to Auckland, they went overseas.
Okay.
It was pretty tough competition.
Yeah.
And Jared, from his coaching, it was just up his alley because because he was full time at that stage, so he got the opportunity to do more of what he was doing from Halswell to leading into that year.
But he had all day, every day to do it.
Pretty much, pretty much.
That's so cool, man. And you guys actually did all right. You finished 4th on the ladder, qualified for the finals. You beat the star-studded Auckland City Vulcans side 30-22, and then you knocked out my Waikato Cougars 32-6. You gave them a hiding. But so what's the feelings like going into those finals? Are they like quite full-on tough matches?
Yeah, all the teams were very star-studded. It was they were hard matches, as you mentioned with the players that we had. It was great being able to sort of step up from club stuff and join them in a representative football. So it was the first time you got to sort of play with the likes of Logan and Mark, and so that was really awesome because not only did it help you personally, their advice, because they'd been there and done that with a lot of rep stuff. So it helped grow your own game personally. So, it was awesome.
Yeah, man. So you went down to the Haitro Okaseni captain Counties Manukau in the preliminary final. But, pretty safe to say you guys had a pretty awesome season, eh? And, it must be special that New Zealand had that competition. And it's such a shame we don't have something of that now. Like, what even is out there now? Like, I'm not that sure.
Yeah, no, I think they just have the championship and the premiership now.
Okay.
But I do remember that with that counties game, I think Haitro was playing hooker.
Yeah.
And he was actually quite quick for a hooker because I do remember the game. We played out at Manukau. I think it was around a Greyhound Stadium or something like that.
Okay.
But anyway, I remember running from dummy half, and Haitro might have been second marker, and he just stepped out and just smashed me. And I reckon I was concussed. I didn't really know it at the time, but I did. Afterwards, we jumped on the bus and we went home, and I wasn't too good there. He could hit it. He could hit you hard then.
You could run off the back fence too.
And I wasn't running fast, but he could hit hard. And it was good because obviously later on I got to sort of play with Haitro a few games. So,
that's pretty awesome, man. So cool. So something really special happened in 1995. This particular jersey here is your playing jersey from when the Auckland Warriors played their first trial match at Addington Stadium. You played for Canterbury.
That's right, yes.
Pretty amazing. So what was it like to be part of the hype? The Warriors are this juggernaut that's taken over the country. Everyone's excited, but you get to play in the very first match against them.
That's right.
It's pretty special, man. Like, that's a historic match, in my opinion.
It was. It was great. We, I guess, it was a step up from the Lion Red Cup because the two teams, the Cardinals and the Shiners, joined forces. Obviously,
how good.
And so it was representative. So it was good. And we had Lex Clark as our coach, and Lex was a very good coach. He'd done the junior Kiwis going through, so he was a very good coach. I do recall us getting together as a team prior to the game and staying out at the Russley Hotel. So we bonded really well.
Yeah.
And he made us believe. So it was just a matter of turning up.
Yeah.
Obviously, the spectacle on the day was just unbelievable.
It had to be huge, man.
Yeah, it was.
How nervous were you?
I can't really remember being nervous.
Okay.
But I probably was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a big crowd. It was a great occasion.
Yeah.
And to be part of it, it was just outstanding. So I was lucky enough to get the jersey.
That's so cool,
and keep it somehow. I don't know. Found it in a bag not long ago when we were sort of working through some stuff. So it brings back some fond memories. They were really good, the Warriors at the time.
Yeah.
Afterwards, we all got medallions. I think Darren showed his off on Facebook not long ago.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was I think we played 4 quarters, as I mentioned before, and that number, I got number 13 on my back there, so I was actually playing lock that day.
Okay.
And I ended up playing centre for 1 quarter, fullback for another quarter, and 5'8" for another quarter. So I played 4 different positions that day. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's
versatile.
Ironic also, and it's a quiz question I put out to some people. I was the first person to ever score against the Warriors because I got a penalty goal.
Okay.
It was the first point to ever score before they played in the competition, obviously, but first game that they played.
That's a good one, man. Pretty awesome piece of history.
It was great.
Got the man on the couch. How good is that?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome stuff, man. So, you guys actually did go down 26-12, but that's a pretty fair fight, against a star-studded team. They had some pretty amazing players.
They did. They, obviously captained by Dean Bell, and but we had some great players marking up against them. Blair Harding marked up against Dean Bell and had a fantastic game, and I think that led to some higher honours for Blair.
Okay.
So there was some good matchups, but obviously they were a quality team, and they'd done a big pre-season training because they were building into their first year, and they had some fantastic players, and you still looked up to those players as the pinnacle for New Zealand Rugby League.
Yeah.
The score was probably a fair indication of the game, and we gave it our best, but at the end of the day, it was a great spectacle.
It's just it's just amazing, I think. So you played another season for the Cardinals in '95, but you also went back to Canterbury and played for the Halswell Hornets again. So how did that come about? Because was that because of injuries that you got to go back and play for Halswell? Because you were with the Cardinals.
That's right. So we played again. The Lion Red Cup was on again in '95. And I think the Vulcans played for Auckland. They were sort of like the junior Warriors back then. So I do remember playing against them as well. Our team was sort of depleted a little bit. A lot of the players had really good '94 seasons, and so they had gone on to other things.
Okay.
And, so the competition was sort of maybe a little bit diluted in '95 because a lot of players had moved on. But there were some players coming through. So the Cardinals didn't have the best of years.
Okay.
But personally, I had a pretty good year. I think I was a top point scorer in the competition.
Wow.
And at the beginning of the year when we played the Warriors, so we were fit and ready. We had a pretty good off season. So so personally, I had a pretty good one. '95 was probably one of my better years, and that helped go on to sort of higher honours.
Yes, it did.
But leading into that, back into the club football. So once the Lion Red Cup finished, you because you'd played rep football for a certain amount of games, I believe, you couldn't go back and play club level. But Halswell, there was a way out of it, and Halswell had some injuries.
Yes.
So that if they got an injury, you were able to bring someone in.
Okay.
And they did. Phil Prescott was the coach of Halswell that year.
Phil.
Yeah. And so they had an injury, and I don't recall if it was in the halves or at fullback or anything, but he asked me to come back and play in the semi-final. So I said, I'd be keen to come back and play as many games as I can. So I played in the semi-final, and so we won that. Yeah,
I've got a good story that I got off Facebook that this guy wrote. Sami Laumua, I'm so sorry if I said your name wrong. You absolutely broke his heart because the major semi-final, the Swans versus the Hornets. Do you remember this? So at the Addington Showgrounds, he said the usual interchange for the Swans didn't happen that game due to a sin binning of the Star Swans prop. So Sami's usual interjection was later in the game with 15 minutes left to go in the second half. The score was 24-18 to the Hornets. Mm-hmm. He came on within 5 minutes. He'd scored off his own chip and chase, then Kelly Huani kicked the conversion to draw level. And then Halswell had the safety net of coming out of their own goal. It's the fifth and final tackle. What happens next?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you came out from 52 metres out and slot a bloody field goal.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, so sorry.
With 2 minutes to go, 25-24, heartbreaking win for the Hornets. Well done, Glenn Conklin.
Well, that's tradition for Halswell because we had Phil Bancroft back in the day. He probably kicked a couple of field goals. I remember watching one of them. It was just a floater. I don't know how it went over, but it did. So
was that for like their first ever premiership way back in the day?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Unreal.
So it's probably something that Halswell was lucky enough to have over the years. But geez, that's a shame. And Kelly Huani was actually a school friend from Aranui. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, very good sports person because he was very good at touch as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
do you remember that?
I don't remember that game specifically because it was more about the final for me. Because, well,
that's what you did.
Well, there we go. Jeez.
That's such a cool story. When I read that, I was like, I'm so reading that out on the podcast.
Oh, no.
But it didn't end there. Obviously, we go to the grand final, one of the great grand finals, and you were the star of the show in the end of the match. You're up against Linwood. You're actually 15-0 down into the game. And let's remember, Linwood's a great side, and you guys are pretty injury ravaged going into the match. So how did it go down? 15-0 down. Take the centre stage, Glenn Conklin.
Yeah, so Linwood were definitely one of the dominant sides that year. They had a very good side, and not that Halswell didn't, and it wasn't anything to do with me. But we were fortunate enough. I think the week prior, must have been after the semi-final. Some of the boys might have gone out in town and had a good night.
Yeah,
I think they got injured.
Okay,
injured, hurt.
Yeah,
maybe
doing something they shouldn't.
Yeah. So we were lucky enough because Walter played in the Cardinals as well, Walter Wilson. So we're allowed to, because another player got ruled out injured, he was able to come into the final as well.
Handy player to have come in.
Yeah. Linwood probably didn't like it at the time, but so I played 5'8", and Walter came onto the bench for the final, and we were we were down. I think Glenn Grew, who was our captain, Bert Grew, he was a fantastic player, and I think he either got sent off very early in the match, for a head high tackle, and I think it might have been 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the game, and it sort of just caught us all off, and so we were down sort of 15-0 at half time.
Far out.
And I remember Walter coming on. He came on at fullback, and Walter just ignites anything, right?
Yeah.
So whether it be the football field or the nightlife, Walter is very entertaining. Great to have by your side. But anyway, so it was a fight back, and the second half it got to, what was it, 15-14 or something like that?
Yeah.
15-14, and with only minutes to go.
Yeah.
And it was just an opportunity. It was, I just got the ball and I was able to sort of get through a gap. It was probably a couple of bus wides. Anyway, I got through and scored, and that was it. Basically, the final hooter.
Yeah, you guys won 2019.
Yeah,
unbelievable. So you must have been down 1915 or something like that.
Yeah, it would have been 1915.
Something like that.
Yeah, 1916.
Yeah,
1916.
And you get
it was.
The try.
Yeah.
And you
because it didn't matter about the kick because it was just enough to get the try.
Right. Yeah.
And I do remember because it was probably the first time in a long time that Linwood had been in the finals.
Okay.
And so you did feel a little bit sorry for them. So again, we went to their club rooms and sort of had a bit of a celebration after that. But again, it's great to go back to the Halswell club and have a great celebration.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So 95 was a really good year for me.
Very big year. Yeah. So it didn't stop there either, because you got selected to play for New Zealand Presidents 13 to play Tonga. And you had guys like who went on to Nigel Varganaz, Logan and Anthony Swan. These pretty big names, and you just pumped them 44-10. It's a bit of a hiding. You kicked 5 goals, had a great day out. What's it like pulling on like a proper Kiwis jersey at like a serious level now? What's that like for you? Yeah,
well, it was huge because it was probably the first time I'd sort of earned a jersey to play in a game, because the tournaments in the 19s, it's really just a paper team.
Right, you've got that jersey here, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Was it? I think it's this one here. Is it this one? Was it a white one or was it the black one?
It'd be the black one.
Black one.
Here you go.
There we go.
Look at that. Yep. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's put that up there for everyone to have a look. That's his playing jersey versus Tonga. I mean, that's pretty special right there.
Yeah. All I remember on that game is that Tonga were very physical.
Yeah, I bet.
And the score probably didn't reflect how it was, but there was some. Yeah, as you mentioned, you got Anthony Swan, and Nigel Vargana were in the centres. I was playing fullback, so had some great players. Yeah. And in the forwards, it was like a second Kiwi side. It was New Zealand 13 or New Zealand residents. It was still a very good side. So it was a huge honour to even be part of it. So we had a good build up in Auckland. Played at Ericsson Stadium or whatever it was called back in those days. And all I remember is I was playing fullback and I was trying to save a try and I got kneed in the head and I got split. I've still got the scar.
Oh, really?
And I think I got stapled. I put staples in it.
Oh, that's gross.
Chuck some glue in it and away I went.
Back on the field. Get back out there, Coughlan.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah. That's what it was like. But that was the first taste of that type of stuff, which was, it was pretty special.
That's pretty amazing, man. Yeah. It's so cool to see the actual jersey. Yeah. It's blown my mind. Love it. And you also got selected, which was the other jersey you got for the President's team against the 1995 Kiwis World Cup squad. You unfortunately went down 20-4, but you had the Fab Four from Canterbury, yourself, Aaron Whitaker, Walt Wilson, and Darren Avery. I mean,
that's right.
How cool is that, man?
Yeah, all from the same club, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, man. So let's chuck that up there. That's pretty special. So going with the long sleeves.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty awesome, man.
Well, it's pretty funny, the old 3/4 sleeves. Yeah. Anyway, that was great, and probably not so much fond memory. There was a couple of memories from that game. I do remember. And I became good friends with Gary Freeman the year after, but they were sort of building into the World Cup that year, so it was a big year for them. So they needed a hit out, and it was a great opportunity for those that probably weren't up to that level. Some of them probably thought they might have been. Yeah, they were definitely fringe players. Yeah. And so it was a good opportunity for them to show why they probably deserved to be in the side.
Okay.
But there was two things. There's one, I think, I'm not sure if it was Aaron or Phil Bergman were involved with a bit of an altercation with Gary Freeman on that one.
It was Phil Bergman.
Was it Phil Bergman?
The altercation, and then Whittaker came in and absolutely smashed
Phil Bergman's known for that. I remember on a couple of the 19s trips, Phil Bergman, he's a classic. Great to have in your team. Yeah. To take your sort of mind away from football. So during the downtime, Phil Bergman is he's a great guy to have around. But and the second one was I was playing fullback, and Jason Williams. He was just an absolute speedster.
He's so quick,
and he made me look like I was walking. I probably was walking, but he went around me just so fast, and I was like, "Wow, this is just it's a different level."
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a reality check for myself, but it was probably more positioning. But he was just he was quick. He was very quick.
I remember he scored a try in the 94 grand final against the Rays. He took an intercept, no one touched him. I mean, they lost, but no one put a hand on him. He was fast.
He was, He's from Canterbury too.
Unreal.
Yeah. So cool. So 95, as I say, 95, I forgot about those ones, but 95 was a big year for me. It was,
It's very special.
Awesome. Oh, for sure.
Cool, mate. So cool. Yep. So 96 turned out to be another huge year for you, where after your grand final heroics for Halswell, you found yourself flying to Australia to play for Parramatta Eels, reserve grade. So how did that whole opportunity come about?
Yeah, so obviously I did have a good year, and there was a big thing with the Australian competition, because they had the Super League War was going on. So there was a lot of players going between the ARL and the Super League.
Yes.
And I think because I had a good year, and because the Linery Cup was on TV and I was a top point scorer for the competition, there was an opportunity for someone, and I didn't have to go on trial or anything. They just rang me up and said, "We're after a goal kicker."
Really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So basically, here it is. Here's the contract. If you want to come over, the spot's there for you.
So was that reserve grade specifically, or actual Parramatta?
That was for Parramatta.
Far
Yeah. So
wicked.
Because it was so that was serious coin back there. It was for me. It was.
So that was professional, full-time.
Full-time.
Don't have to work.
That's right.
Oh, that's so
Everything was sort of laid on, accommodation. Anything I really it was. So I'd actually been approached by the Warriors at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I went because I talk about out of the comfort zone. I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go to Australia and have a crack. I'd never been to Australia and played.
That's brave.
Yeah, it was brave. Yeah. But it was reassuring as well, because they had a lot of unbelievable players that they'd signed.
I know. I was going to read some of them out in a second, when I was going to ask you, what's it like?
Yeah.
Walking in to see like Jason Smith, Jim Dimmock, Jared McCracken, that's amazing. Like Dean Hay, Gary Freeman, like the list keeps going.
The side was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so, they'd spent a huge amount of money, and I guess they needed someone to kick all the goals from all these guys scoring tries. So that's basically how it came along.
Okay.
And so I went over in November.
Yeah.
And signed and trained with them. And so it was a huge step up again from what I'd been used to in terms of pre-season training. It was just unbelievable. And I think that's one of the things you sort of realise. And I do remember at a younger grade, whether it be 12s or 13s, the Australian teams would come over and you'd play against them, and they were just way above you. Yeah, they're just way above you. And so, not that I was wanting to aspire to it at a younger age, but when you got older, you sort of, well, what do I do to be able to get better?
Okay.
And this was the environment. They were so professional. And the Warriors were as well.
Yeah.
But the Warriors were in their second year.
Right.
We're a club like Parramatta. It was their 50th year. So it was a huge year for them.
Yeah.
And they had a huge amount of history behind them. So it was a great opportunity for me to go over there and see where I basically would land in the big time.
Well, Aaron Whittaker said Illawarra Steelers made him. When he went over, because the training just said was just he got so fit, and when he came back to New Zealand, he had to pull back a little bit when he was playing provincial, because he felt like he didn't want to be a show pony. That's the type of training you would have been put through.
Yep, did right, and I still wasn't a big player. In terms of weight, I was probably only about 88 kilos when I was in New Zealand, and then they wanted me to get to 92 kilos playing fullback. So so I had to try and keep my pace as well. So there was a lot of weight training at the beginning of it, and then there was a lot of fitness.
Yeah.
So we had sprint coaches, we had dietitians, we had everything. Everything was on tap basically. So it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I got so the accommodation was just down the road from Parramatta Stadium, so everything was laid on, and really all you had to do was sort of just be committed, and I was committed. So. And then there were some Kiwis, and so they owned a set of flats, and we all sort of lived in, and I had my own flat, and I had a couple of Kiwis. Matt Spence.
I remember Matt Spence. He came back to the Warriors in 2000.
Yeah. So he was over there, Turangi boy. Yeah. And so he was next door, and another boy from Wellington, Chris Faifua, who played junior Kiwis. Wow. Chris passed away, but he was there as well. So I felt at home. It definitely wasn't feeling like I was, in another country. That's so cool. It was really good. Yeah. We helped each other probably along the way, and so I came back for Christmas and New Year, and then straight back into the pre-season games. Okay. Into the '96 season.
So how did that season pan out for you?
So it started off really well. I played all the pre-season games. We went everywhere. Yeah. It was great. It was, this is what professional sport was like.
Yeah,
you go away and you stay at resorts.
Oh, stop
it. we played against South Sydney up in Caloundra, and went down to Griffiths and played just a sort of like a group team down there. And I do remember it was probably the biggest game at that stage, and we were playing at Parramatta Stadium, and it was like a week or two before the season started, and we played I guess they were East or the Roosters.
Yep.
And I was playing fullback, and we had, the full side was on. When you go through it, you had Adam Ritson. Adam Ritson was just a young fella. Yeah. Peter Johnson was, and then Aaron Raper, and as you say, all the Bulldogs,
hooker, wasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. Far out. He had the tape around his head.
Yeah, that's right.
Him. Yep.
And Gary Freeman. So Gary Freeman was really good for me. Yeah. For that place, because he was the captain of the club. And he was a Kiwi, so they'd really sort of look after me as well, and made it easier for me to settle in, which was really good. And so that was the game against the Roosters, was probably the biggest game, and both teams were basically putting out their number one side.
I would have had like Terry Hermanson and Jason Lowry up front, absolutely steamrolling your guys.
Got a good story about that. So, and my idol was Brad Fittler, and he was playing for them as well.
Talk about
so that was
playing against your heroes.
And that's what it was like. And so it was a big game just leading into the start of the competition. And I do remember taking a ball from fullback and thinking, oh great, there's quite a big gap there, and I reckon I can take that gap. Unfortunately, Jason Lowry was on one side and Terry Herman was on the other side.
That's a Glen Coughlan sandwich.
That. And I got smacked. I think Terry actually said to me, welcome to the ARL.
Well, you'd been around for a few years by that point.
Yeah. So that was a big wake-up call. So the timing, so you didn't have as much time as you used to, and probably playing line red cup or club football.
You just felt it was so much quicker. Did it ever slow down for you though?
Not at the high level. No. It was always so fast.
Yeah.
And that's what you had to train for. It was just so fast. So I don't think we won, but it was a good game. Yeah. And so I was feeling confident leading into the season. Yeah. That I'd done enough, and I was kicking goals and stuff like that. So, and I had even scored a couple of tries in the trial. So I was feeling fairly confident. Yeah. Leading up to the first game, and so the first team we got named to start the season. And I think what happened is, because the Super League ARL was still going on, there was a forfeit in the first round.
There was.
I think Adelaide might have been one of the teams. Basically,
it was all the Super League aligned clubs basically didn't play.
That's right. Yeah. And I think Adelaide had a team, but then they didn't. So what happened is that Adelaide, all the players from there went to ARL clubs.
That's right. Yeah, because like Kevin Campion, who I had on the show, he went to St George, and clubs that didn't already exist. Yes. Like Hunter Mariners and Adelaide Rams at the time. Right. They all had to find new homes.
Yeah, so unfortunately for me, Adelaide had a fullback called Rod Maben, who played at St George, a very good fullback.
Yep.
So that was basically I was done. So,
that's not fair.
Yeah. Well, it was tough. But it was a reality. It was a reality. I just wasn't good enough to play. So I played reserve grade for the whole year. But it was really... Jeff Gerard, who was a legend out west.
Wasn't he like the first player to play 300 games?
Oh, he might have been, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was, because he was like Manly and then Penrith or something.
Yeah. So Penrith was my team. So
I'm such a geek. Sorry, carry on.
So he was our coach. Ron Hildrich was the first grade coach. And so I basically played reserve grade, and there were some very good reserve grade players because Parramatta had obviously purchased a lot of players from
good depth.
Yeah, they have really good depth.
Yeah.
So we played some. Stu Kelly was. I think he'd come from Queensland.
He was so fast.
He was outstanding player.
I remember 1998, he had a blinder of a season. Yeah. And then he went to the Broncos or something.
Yes, that's right. So 96, that was his first year as well. And there was Nathan Barnes. He'd come from Newcastle. So there was some unbelievable talent there. So Stu Kelly started in reserve grade, and he was outstanding in reserve grade. And by the end of the year, he was playing first grade. So it was really good. It was still a step up from what I'd used to, and I still really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
But that was it. Basically, once that season's done, I was done, and came back home.
How did you land at the Warriors? So you signed with the Warriors for the Super League season.
Yeah.
And with the whole Super League dramas going on. Like, were you approached by Super League or were you approached by the Warriors? How did that all shake out?
So I was approached by the Warriors because I was talking to them previous year and went to Parramatta. When I came back, they knew I got released. So they said, would you like to come to Auckland? So I said, yep, no worries.
Right. Yeah,
dead right. Yeah,
another opportunity.
Wouldn't turn it down. So same sort of thing. Basically, it was a full-time gig up there. I think I'm not sure what the numbers situation was, but I basically moved up there straight away. Stayed with Aaron and Andrea.
Oh, how good.
Yeah. So, and then they just had their first Jackson, their first child. So it was I better move out because give them their family time. But it was good to be settled in with him.
Yes.
And a lot of the players that were in the residents or presidents were at the Warriors as well. So I felt like I sort of worked in quite well. So it made it quite comfortable. And Auckland's fairly close, and so it was another great year. Again, played reserve grade. Matthew Ridge was the first.
Pretty tough to knock him out.
It is, and you got to sit on the bench. It was a little bit different back in those days. You got to sit on the bench, and so if someone specialised when injured, you could go on. So you'd play your reserve grade game, and then. John Money and then Frank took over as a coach. So you'd have sort of a huge number of interchange players.
Two reserves that could go on, and then you had a bunch you could pick from.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I did that a few times, but never got the opportunity, which was fair enough. But really enjoyed playing reserve grade and seeing some of the younger boys because they had the younger team coming up. And there were some very experienced players like Hotro and Mark Horrow.
You had Phil Blake?
Phil Blake,
He's like one of my idols, man. Phil Blake was legend.
I think I was centre partners with Phil. He played a bit of 5'8", and I was actually playing a lot of centre because there was a young fella, Joe Nalivo.
I remember he ended up at Penrith, premiership winner. Well, he played fullback.
He did.
He was unreal at the Warriors.
He played fullback. So it was really just a good opportunity to play some really good footy again.
Yeah, man.
And the great thing about being in New Zealand was that every second week you go to Australia. So the alcohol cabinet was great because you just go through duty free and get alcohol every other week.
Come back on the Johnny Walker every time.
You did right. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Oh, what an experience. So what was it like being under Frank Endicott?
Yeah.
The Canterbury connection and all of that?
Yes. Frank would have been one of the best coaches I've had. And it's no disrespect to any other coaches, but again, great people's person. Yeah. And for me, that's made a really good coach. And
that's what you want.
Yeah, did right.
Yeah, man. And, you've reconnected with Aaron and Shane Endicott as well.
That's right, yep.
Pretty special. And then you
Ricky
guys...
Henry was from Christchurch.
Yeah.
You guys some good Christchurch players.
You went to the grand final.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's tell us about the grand final. This is pretty special moments, and I know it's reserve grade, but the quality is still very high.
Yeah.
And, tell us how it all went.
So, we went to Brisbane, and the grand final was in Brisbane because it was the first Super League year. And I think whoever was the leader or won the premiership got to host the...
So Broncos and Sharks played the grand final?
Yeah. And it was a 60,000 stadium. So it wasn't jam-packed when we were playing, but there would have been 20, 30,000 at that stage.
Wow.
And so it was huge. Yeah. And we had some outstanding players, and we'd gone through the semis to make the final, and we played Canterbury, who had some very good players as well. And my memory of that is I actually broke my foot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I went off, got an injection, and then came back on.
Stuff that.
But they were just too good for us on the day. They had some class young players coming through. Hughes brothers were coming through. Yeah.
Is that Stephen and Glenn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had some really good players. And we just sort of, it's on the day sometimes.
Yeah.
And we just sort of, And even though the Warriors, they were used to, because they'd made the grand final the year before.
That's right.
Just not this time.
So you got a bit of a memento from that game, though, that you might want to show off here.
So during the game, or once the game had finished, you got to sort of swap jerseys with a player. So
that's amazing.
I got this one here. So it's a Canterbury Bankstown one, and I got to swap it because you had your own. You had to keep you could keep your own numbers back in those days. So Paul Mallor was the number 48 that I got to swap my jersey with.
That's so cool.
It's way too big for me. But
he's a big lad. But the jerseys were so baggy back then.
Yeah, they were baggy. He was a very good player, so playing in the centres. But so it's a memento over there. I've still got my playing jersey, but my father can't find it at the moment. So I would have been great to bring that. So I was number 37 for the year, so you had your own number. So everything you got was number 37.
Right.
In terms of jerseys and boots and boot bags and every bag you got. So,
I love Super League jerseys. I think that was the year I really, really got into rugby league, properly, obsessed. And it was Super League. I just remember all the jerseys and
And they played I think they played in they played the UK stuff as well.
Yeah, the World Club Challenge.
Yeah, that's right.
Warriors carved up all the UK clubs. Like, they gave Bradford a 60-point hiding. I remember, that was awesome.
Yeah. So, no, that was fantastic. And, so all I remember is coming back for a Mad Monday after the grand final, and the club was really good. They really looked after you, as a lot of the clubs do. All I remember is being right in town, and I wasn't one for drinking beer, but I'm a rum drinker,
right?
And I think I'd had a bit too much, and there was a couple of bars down Fort Street, and they were old style, and where they had the windows where they sort of lift up, from the outside. Yeah. And I think I was sitting on a ledge, and I basically just fell out the window onto the footpath. So Shane and Aaron said, "Well, this boy's had a bit too much," so they put me in a cab and sent me home.
Send you home.
But it was, when you reflect on it, it was a really good year. And some really good wins, played some really good teams, and great memories.
But playing with guys like Aaron Whittaker, he's one of my favourite people in the world now since I've met him through doing this. And it's unbelievable. But when I had him on the show and I asked him, who was the one player you loved playing alongside during your career, he said Glenn Coughlan was his answer. And just because you're so reliable and cool under pressure, hence the nickname the Iceman. So that's pretty fantastic, to get those accolades from your teammates.
Oh, for sure, Aaron's a great friend. He was best man at my wedding with Walter.
Oh, how good.
Yeah, and it was great playing with him. It's just so professional. Right, from Monday through to the game. So many of chicken lasagna when I was staying with Aaron, sort of in the leading up, the old 40-30-30 diet that we used to have. Some great times, and it was great to have him playing at Halswell, because that's basically what started my senior career, really, having someone like him by my side.
That's pretty cool, man.
So
1998, we move on to rugby union. Playing for Sydenham, and Aaron Whittaker put in one of the fan questions. He wants to know, what was the reason behind changing codes, and was there an opportunity to stay with the Warriors or any other league club, or was it just time for a new challenge?
Well, I actually got offered to go to the UK, to the north of England, but I thought that was a bit too far from home. And so it was really a chance to come home, being a couple of years away, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So. And the rugby league scene in Christchurch was sort of tapered away from the pinnacle of the late 80s and early 90s. And there were some high scoring games, and some of the teams probably weren't just up to Premier football. So when I'd finished in Auckland and came back, Steve Hansen, who lived in Halswell at the time, found out that I'd coming back, and he approached me. I had a meeting with him. He was a policeman back in the day.
Oh, true.
Meet him at the Hornby police station. And said, would you like to have a go at rugby union?
Okay.
I said, well, this would be something different, so I'm keen to try it. So that's how it started.
Right.
And so it was really about finding a club in Christchurch, a rugby club, and and it was still that sort of the rugby league, that type of stuff back then. And Steve sort of said, "Oh, well, I'll put you in the country competition just to keep you away from sort of anything." And I said, "Oh, I don't want to be travelling out to the country, so I'll play in town." And so it led from that, and then Dave Rhodes, who was the president at Sydenham Rugby, must have got out somehow, and so he'd come and said, "Oh, look, come and have a chat. Be keen for you to come to Sydenham." Well, Sydenham had been a successful team for the previous 2 years.
Yes.
So I thought, well, the best thing for me to help my rugby or learning how to play rugby would be Sydenham. So
go to a good club.
Dead right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it was the first time I'd really played rugby since the school days, at Shirley Boys, like they do now. I know St Thomas's, because my son goes to St Thomas's, they've got the rugby in the league and a lot of the players interchange. Well, back when I was at school, a lot of the players did actually, so Shirley Boys had a very good rugby team. And me and another friend, Michael Tamati, who actually, he went to Parramatta. And then he came back and he played rugby for Canterbury as well. So I sort of followed him. But together we were both leagueies back in the day. And we had a game of, we trialled for the school first 15 rugby team. And I think I was second five and he was centre. But rugby back then was a little bit more of a 10-man game, and we really never got an opportunity to sort of show our skills. So didn't really sort of pursue playing rugby. But some of the rugby boys did play league for us at school, and we were successful and won the championship. Both teams won the championship, so that was quite good. But so really what I was looking for is a club that would really help me sort of understand a little bit more about rugby and what might be my position. And Sydenham was a really good, successful team. So
brilliant.
Yep.
Awesome, man.
That's how it happened.
So how did you find the crossover, the change in code? Was there anything you carried over from league that was helpful, or was it just completely different?
There was definitely some interchangeable skills.
Yep.
I definitely learnt along the way, and I got told plenty of time to kick it kick it or run it when I probably should have ran it or kicked it. But it was a great experience, and at that stage I was playing fullback, and so I was pretty comfortable in playing fullback in rugby, and I had I could kick a ball, so there's no worries about that. So at fullback it was a position where you sort of had to determine whether you kick it further down or you have a run because you've got your support there. So a little bit of trial and error as I went along. And I got sort of told in no uncertain terms and certain times that I should have done things differently. But it was great, and I was supported by a great bunch of guys who are still friends to this day.
That's cool, man. Well, I got told a really good story on Facebook about your first game at fullback for Sydenham, playing against Marist. So Steve Baker was coaching Marist. He told the team to kick high balls to test the leaguey at fullback all day because you'd be tempted to run the ball and they'd smash you. That was the game plan. And so Dave Barker, the physio for Mara, said to Steve, "I know this guy Glenn Coughlan from the Cardinals. Bombing to him is a bad idea. Don't do it." To which Steve replied, "Stick to being a physio. Just do your job." So the first kick goes up. You catch the ball under pressure, avoid the tackler, and you run 70 metres, scored a try. To which Steve said to the coach, "Told you so."
Yeah, that's right.
Great story.
A very good story. Steve Baker was actually my teacher at Shirley Boys.
Oh, how cool. How good.
And he was a very good rugby player, obviously. But that's the way I obviously played fullback in rugby. So it doesn't in league. So it didn't make a difference. You still got to take high balls under pressure.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that was sort of interchangeable with the two different codes. And as I said before about whether I run it or kick it, I was under pressure, so I had to run it. And I was just lucky enough. Yeah, that's just the
way. Off pretty good.
That's right. Yeah.
That's pretty funny though.
Yeah, dead right it is. Yeah, there was lots of examples where that type of thing would happen, and when I should have kicked it, but I ran it, and I tell you, my forwards told me pretty quickly afterwards. They don't like running backwards.
So she must have progressed pretty quick because you actually got all the way up to NPC for Canterbury, Division 1 and 2.
That's
so,
right. Yep.
How was that progression? Pretty incredible feat, really, because not everyone crosses codes so well.
Yeah. Well, I think in the fullback position, everything was fairly similar. Obviously, you just had to determine whether you held onto it or whether you got rid of it.
Okay.
So a lot of it was the skills were interchangeable, I felt, and I sort of was quite open in the way that I sort of ran, and I think I had pretty good vision about what I should do. So I adapted pretty well
as well. That helps.
Yeah, definitely it did. Yeah. and again, when you got a really good team, like so, they'd won the final 2 years previously, and they won the final 2 years when I was there. So when you're in a good team, it makes a big difference as well. So you've got a lot of support there. So when you're in a good team environment, again, I think that helped me with the accolades of getting into the rep stuff. So so the first year I made the Canterbury B side, and then the following year the Crusaders went away to a tour over in Australia, and I actually been on holiday to Bali, and I got back and then got told pretty much the next day, pack your bags, you're off to Australia. You're going to the Crusaders are taking a development side. So awesome. So that was really good. So I started to sort of build some connections within that rugby fraternity as well. So, and it was quite hard because obviously the Sydenham rugby was very much about family, and it was really good. And so developing onto getting into the higher level of the rugby, it was sort of sometimes you just felt there was like, well, he's a leaguey, you know. Not going to give him some information about how.
Really?
It definitely was a bit of that. And most people were pretty good, but you did feel a little bit
of union politics.
Dead right there was. So that was a great opportunity as well, because that was another level. So I went from Canterbury B, and then in 1999. Had another year of Sydenham, and we won a championship. So then I got promoted to Canterbury A side, and that was helped by, it was a World Cup year. So a lot of the World Cup players they were going to the World Cup, so they were sort of left out of the rep stuff. But it was still good, you know, with Captain Todd Blackadder, and there was some really good players.
That's amazing.
Mark Robinson, who was so he was there, and Steve Surridge, Aaron Flynn, great mates still to this day.
Awesome, man.
Cool. Who I played with at Sydenham, Dion Kerr. There were some very good players, and it was, you know, very comparable to the 93 when I was at Halswell. There were some fantastic players in that team, and at Sydenham in the senior team there was some fantastic players in that team as well.
It's pretty.
So
pretty
I
impressive.
Just right person, right time.
Right talent.
A little bit of talent.
You're a very humble guy. I understand that, but you know, you've got the talent, you got picked, and that's pretty impressive.
Definitely made it a little bit easier. Anyway.
Yeah, man. So when all was said and done with your rugby, you got to the end of it. You know, you've played for Canterbury. Did you feel like quite sasatisfied with your union career?
Did right. Yeah. I was at pretty much the end of I knew I was pretty honest with where my level was, and I'd realised that in rugby league that, you know, reserve grade, well, it was fantastic. That was pretty much my level, and it was probably the similar in rugby to, you know, even to get to NPC level was a huge feat for myself, and and there were some great players in the Canterbury team that I played with. The majors, they were very. Aaron and Nathan, they were quite. Now they really liked rugby league, so I got on really well. Ben Blair was playing fullback back then, so he was a young fella coming through. He was another one who liked league. So it was quite good in that regard to sort of get a connection with those types of people.
Brilliant.
So that was really good, and that was pretty much where I was at, and I was happy where I'd got to.
No dreams to get that Crusaders jersey at all?
No,
not just really. Quite happy.
I was happy at club level, to be honest.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Really cool. So then you finished off playing a bit of AFL. So where did that all come about, and who did you play for?
Well, I go back 1 year, and I actually finished in 99 playing rugby for Sydenham, and then Aaron Flynn was playing down in Mid-Canterbury because it was part of the Crusaders franchises, and their first 5 got injured. So Aaron said to the coach down at Mid-Canterbury, said, I know this guy that be keen to play. So I ended up playing second division for Mid-Canterbury for a year as well. So that was pretty much it. So it came to the end of that, and that was great because all the NPC, the first division, you go to all the major towns, the Wellingtons, the Aucklands, for example. But the second division, they went into the smaller towns.
Oh, nice.
It was really good competition.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so we played against the likes of Wairarapa Bush and Horowhenua and Hawke's Bay. And so Hawke's Bay was actually my last game.
Right.
And Hawke's Bay actually needed to win to get a home semi-final or something like that, and we went up there and beat them. And it was my last game, and I do remember my last game. I had a really good, scored a couple of tries, quite a lot of goals.
Went out on a high.
Yep.
Nice.
So that was pretty much me. I was going to retire. I was finished, and I was ready to sort of start my personal life with my family, my wife, and so forth. Yeah.
Nice.
But AFL came up.
Yeah, what happened there?
So it was a summer sport at that stage.
Okay.
And I don't know how I got into it, but it was, and I think Aaron might have been playing a little bit of AFL as well. And it was just really probably a bit of fitness.
Yeah.
And we played for the Burnside Barracudas out at Burnside Park.
Okay.
And so they had the AFL grounds up there.
Who knew that was a thing?
I know. And but anyway, so I was still quite fit, and obviously I could kick.
Yeah. Oh, it was tailor made for you.
Great. So
honestly.
yeah. So I had I think the Barracudas, I think they were called. They went unbeaten the whole year.
Far out.
So it was great.
What a heap of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that actually led on to there was a few of us that got picked for a North versus South team.
Okay.
And that was at Westpac Stadium in Wellington, and
true.
we were the first ever game that must have been just being built, and we were the curtain raiser to a Hawthorn Essendon AFL game that they'd brought over from Australia.
Wow.
And from that North versus South, they were picking a New Zealand team to play in a Oceania tournament.
Okay.
Which was I think it was in Fiji.
Okay.
So, and then I made the New Zealand team for that, but the coup had just happened, so they canned it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was AFL was great fun. Yeah, so it was just something different that it just happened to be there, and
Who knew that was even a thing in New Zealand? You just don't hear about it.
No, you don't.
You just don't.
No.
Oh, it's brilliant. Okay, so I got a few fan questions for you from the Facebook group. Darren Avery wants to know, who was it that split your eye open in the final against the New Zealand Māori in the Oceania Cup final?
That's right. And that was at Carlisle Park. It was great.
Oh, Carlisle Park.
Historic ground to play at.
Yes.
And it was a great game. It was a very close game. And it was probably the smallest player on the field, actually. It was, I think it was Daryl Beasley.
Okay.
Yeah, he was playing.
The smallest guy.
Yeah. And he just happened to clip me across the forehead. I think I was stepping.
Yeah.
And he sort of put his arm out and
whacked you.
Just how I broke my thumb. But yeah, it clipped me and opened me up pretty easily, and she was gashing out. In fact, I thought this jersey, I'm not sure if I won, but it might have had blood on it. It might have been, I can't remember if it's the same one. It's still got a bit of blood on it somewhere. It might be another one I've got that, the blood's still on it from there.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so Walt Wilson wants to know, who was the first person to give you the nickname the Iceman?
Walter would know that because it was him.
There we go.
So, yeah, that was after the 95 couple of games I played for Halswell.
Okay.
Yeah. When we both came back for the final, but I went back for the semi-final, and I was just that's how I got the name.
Such a cool nickname.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, take that one to your grave. It's a good one.
Yeah.
So Aaron Whittaker, you might know him. He wants to know, who is your favourite coach and why was it him?
Well, yeah, I guess. You're thankful for all the coaches you have right through the grades. And I mentioned Steve Arneson when I first started at Halswell, and he was fantastic. And then Mike Burke at Easton for the 3 years there. Aaron at 16, so that's when I came back to Halswell. Aaron was a coach, and he had sort of opened me up to sort of going that next level. Because that's what he was doing, playing Premier football at that stage. So while he was there, I was only 16. Even though I do remember when I was 16 a story, because we made the grand final for Section 2.
Okay.
And I got glandular fever.
Oh, that's rough.
It was rough.
That is rough. I'll never forget my dad had that when I was a young
Well,
guy.
I tried to prove my fitness. So I said, because I lived out at Halswell at that stage, and to prove the fitness to the doctor, I said, I'm fine, I can play. So Aaron and I ran out to tie tap him back. It was about 20k.
Far out.
And I said, no, fine, I'm ready to play. But the doctor said, no, with glandular fever, if you get a knock, you can actually die from it.
Far out.
So I missed the grand final. Even though it was Section 2, I still missed the grand final.
It's a fair run out there.
Yeah, it was a good, yeah. But anyway, so in terms of coaches, Aaron was, in terms of players playing with, Aaron was definitely one of the best. So, but in coaches, it's always hard to separate them. But I mentioned Jared, Frank, Steve Hansen with Canterbury.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty big names.
and all of them, the same thing. Steve Hansen, very good people's person. Frank, great people, and so was Jared. So that sort of worked for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And they were all very successful coaches, as we know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scott Rushton wants to know, what position did you enjoy playing the most?
Probably fullback.
Yeah.
I enjoyed playing fullback. Yeah.
Okay.
It was an opportunity for open space, and with my ability to be able to move, step, or whatever, and get someone one-on-one, that was probably the biggest opportunity. I enjoyed 5'8" as well because it was probably more tactical. So it was about supporting players and putting players in gaps and so forth. So I really enjoyed that, especially at a younger age. But as I grew up and sort of developed steps and stuff like that, was trying to get one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You like running?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, fair enough too.
And not much tackling.
Yeah, it's good at the back. So Cole BW wants to know, how many times have you won the green jacket, and which one of those was his highlighted victory and why?
Yeah. So the green jacket, for those who don't know, is actually a family golf tournament.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my uncle CB, Chris Baxter, who was my coach as well. And
I know that name.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Chris passed away a wee while ago, but he was a mentor for me as I was growing up.
Okay.
And my son Baxter was named after Chris and the Baxter family.
Right.
So the Green Jacket is a golf tournament we play every year, and we've played it since 1992, I think.
Okay.
And so Chris was a coach at, he was at Halswell through and through. He also coached at Marist Western Suburbs.
Okay.
And they had the green blazers.
Right.
So that green blazer became the green jacket for our family golf tournament, which we still play to this day.
Awesome.
And the highlight of winning it, especially this year, is one of our family members passed away.
Okay.
And he'd won it last year. So.
Oh wow.
And so we
played
for it. Played for it in January, and he just passed away just recently. So to get it from Sam was pretty special.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh wow. Awesome, man. Okay, so let's finish with a few fun questions.
Yeah.
Actually, before I do that, you had a Cardinals jersey, a replica with the Baxter name on it. Let's have a look, man. This is amazing, this jersey. So let's talk about this for a sec. What's
Cardinal
this one?
So Cardinal Network one. So my sister actually found this somehow, and she gave it to me. So it's and I haven't got much of the Cardinals, but that was definitely a good time of my career, because it was a huge step from going from club stuff to representative stuff, and got to, and the Cardinal, 2 years in the Cardinals was awesome.
It's a gorgeous jersey.
Yeah, it is a
so
pretty
good.
cool jersey. Yeah, doesn't look like a league jersey, but it was actually a really good jersey.
It is so cool.
Yeah,
man. It's got the name Baxter on there. So good.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah.
Right. So I've just got a few questions for you to finish with that I ask everyone. So, were there any players you loved playing alongside or against during your career?
I like playing against all the competitive players. So anyone who was sort of my opposite number, I'd always like to sort of measure myself against. So in terms of players playing alongside, 93, I love playing with all those players in that side.
Yes.
It's the same with that Sydenham. There was some great. So I enjoyed playing against and with the best players that I could possibly play against. I mentioned Brad Fittler because, idol. For me, and Greg Alexander was also an idol because they were all at Penrith. Yes. Penrith is my club, but to play against those, you always sort of try to sort of set yourself with a goal of trying to play against the best people, and it sort of gives you an idea of where you stand.
Yeah.
So Aaron Walter was also my best man at my wedding. So best mates, and we played a lot together during the years, whether it be Halswell representative stuff. So that was good. Darren Avery was always a good player to play with as well, because he was just there. He was like, for a forward, he was one of the fittest forwards you'd know. Yeah. And he'd just do hard work. So always sort of getting on the coattails of Aves.
Yeah.
In terms of playing against the best players it's always a hard one.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great answer.
Everyone who was a competitor, it was, you sort of, doesn't matter whether it was club football or representative stuff. I enjoyed playing with and against everyone. Yeah, man. Yeah. Okay,
so who is going to win the NRL in 2024? You said you're a Panthers man. Can they go 4 in a row?
They can, definitely.
Simple. Lock it in.
I know. I found out. Cleary's out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Thanks, Nathan. My fantasy team's in trouble.
Is that hamstring injury or something like that? So they might struggle a little bit, but
they've got Brad Schneider coming in. He's not a bad little player. He's a good get, I think. He's all right.
Fantastic place, Penrith. It's awesome. So loved them ever since they were the Chocolate Soldiers back in the day.
Man. You would have seen some
80s.
Amazing players come through.
Oh, yeah.
Brad Izzard, Steve Carter, Royce Simmons, double in the grand final. How good was that? 91.
Mark Geyer.
Yeah, man. MG.
John Cartwright. It's just, players and go. Peter. Peter Kelly, Paul Kelly,
Okay.
back in the day with the headgear,
Yeah.
just right back from the early days. Yeah, really always liked them. They were sort of the underdogs to start with.
They were.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously they're going through a golden period at the moment.
Just a bit. Okay, so what's your favourite TV show of all time?
Oh, TV shows. I'm not really into shows as such. Probably Netflix. I just anything that's Netflix.
Yep.
Just sit with the wife and watch different Netflix episodes of anything, really. Yeah.
Cool beans. And if you were on death row, what would your final meal be?
Okay. Anything that's salmon.
Salmon.
Oh, salmon, yeah. Salmon through and through.
It's beautiful. On bagels, cream cheese.
Dead right, yeah.
Loving that.
Ackara salmon. Can't beat it. Yeah.
Awesome stuff, man.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been so cool, man. Like hearing about all your career, like seeing all these jerseys. Absolutely a male element here. Really appreciate you getting out of your comfort zone to come on the show, man. I really appreciate it. So
thanks for having me.
No,
it's been great fun. So
that's good, man. So and thank you to everyone out there for watching and going back in the day with the amazing Iceman, Glenn Coughlan. And man, everyone get on the Facebook group. Everyone's on there. All the league legends. It's growing like wildfire. It's heaps of fun. You know, everyone posts all their old photos and team photos and get amongst it. There's heaps of old people on there having a good time.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, man. So, again, thank you, Glenn, for coming on the show. And everybody out there, we'll see you next time for Kickoff.
Full time.